And we're telling you, we'll take you to the Omanye Hall of the Labadi Beach Hotel, and it's where we have the Stanbic Bank graphic business breakfast meeting. And you know, breakfast connotes that it will be an early morning conclave. Well, for the lawyers, they call it conclave. I have Sergio Leonard, who is a legal practitioner who likes teasing something Lade and Yunini about conclave, as well as Edwige Tamaklo about conclave. I presume that would mean when overnight we all sleep and they have to pour on their books to get ready for their cases while in court. Okay, Joseph Akable is again my guest here. Joseph, good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland.
Right. Which papers do you have so that I'll see whether they are enough?
I have the Daily Guide, the Finder newspaper, and the Daily Dispatch.
At the time. Let me just do the Economy Times and then the Statesman. And so I will do the cheap one so that you look at, so that you can score an A. It helps. So I'll start. I'm entitled to.
You can go ahead.
Well, so let's do the Daily Statesman. It has on the front page, economy has shown resilience, says Professor Quartey. And Professor Quartey, as we know, by his current position, is the boss of ISE. Or is it? No, the head of the economic department. Or boss of ISE. Okay, I'm right. So Professor Peter Quartey, the director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, University of Ghana, says the Akufo-Addo administration deserves plaudits for the sound management of the economy. And he gave the government 68% for its performance so far. He also said, although there's global decline of economic output that could have negative repercussions on the Ghanaian economy, the nation witnessed GDP growth of some 6.2%. We do know that as well, 2018, and 7% in 2019. And he argued that by those indicators, the government has managed the economy quite well. And the government is not only getting the plaudits or the accolades locally, but internationally as well. It's rubbing on us positively, as we say. We also do have up there, front page of the Daily Statesman, two set to battle it out in Suhum MPP primaries. And we have on the front page of the Statesman attached pictures of two people, two individuals, the incumbent member of parliament for Suhum, Opariansa, Frederick Opariansa, and then a keen contestant, Kweju Asante. Quite interesting. Yeah, and we ought to know. We'll bring you live coverage and updates, delivery of great content and analysis on the MPP primaries. And the primaries, we do know, is going to be convened in constituencies where they have MPs and any other that they have added. And just in the numbers of some 168, we're told. It's on the 27th of April. It's on the same day that we're going to have the primary for the presidential. So far, no other person has picked up form to contest the president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Also on the front page of the Daily Statesman, we do have 31 million euros for water expansion. Aqua Africa project benefits over 500 rural communities. Attached is the picture of the Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, Cecilia Dapa, used to be a former member of parliament for Bantama. We also do have, we will ensure equitable development in new regions, the president is assuring. We do know he's been on a tour of the Volta and OT regions. Quite interesting. Now let me do my last paper, and then Joseph will get on to the ones that he has in his fold. And the Economy Times is what I'm looking at. We have modalities for Enterprise Credit Fund ready soon. And the Finance Minister is said to be assuring. We have IMF and tax experts also proposing ways to increase tax revenue. Always in the doldrums as to how we can resolve this. We said that we'll register people, track people through National Identification Authority. It's been 3 years on. We're just not meeting the timelines. How we don't meet the timelines? I don't know, but eventually we'll get there. So far, it looks like we've had 7 million to 8 million people registered, so it means that we're making headway. Policy rate likely to be cut by close of the year, and that'll be it. On the back page, nothing there so far. Joseph, what do you have?
Let's start with the front page of the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide has a story on the president's tour of the OT region. It says, OT booms with massive development. And fresh Arrest over Kaswa Corps murders. Also on the front page, has a photograph of the prime suspect, Eric Kojodua. Soldiers swoop on Volta rebels. And special needs teachers set for Cuba. And focus on credible election, not register, is coming from the National Peace Council. The back page has some sports story here. Kotoko Hearts fans back African origin of a London trip. And all set for GNPC Ghana fastest launch. And show me party pictures and I'll resign. It's also another sports story there. Next Generation completes 2019. Okay, play final. It's also on the back page of the Daily Guide. We can look at the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Quite interesting story here. You may be interested in this one, Roland. Sex for grades. Professor Jampo, Dr. Butako slapped with
Is that
6 months,
the sex in there, right?
4 months suspension, respectively. We are told they've breached sections of the Code of Conduct for academic staff of the university. Their lawyers, we spoke to them on the 6 a.m. news on Joy FM. Their lawyers say that as far as they are concerned, they don't think that there has been sex for grade. They've been found guilty of sex for grade. And there was a graphic slide that we put out. I'm sure we'll get it rolling quite shortly. But the story here on page 15 of the Ghanaian Times says, the University of Ghana yesterday suspended 2 of its lecturers who were implicated in the BBC's controversial Sex for Grades documentary following completion of hearing on the matter. Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Butako are to serve 6 and 4 months suspension without pay, respectively. And a statement signed by the Director of Public Affairs, Stella Amwa, said the 2 were required to undergo training on the UG's sexual harassment and misconduct policy, as well as the Code of Conduct for academic staff of the university. They will be required to receive a positive assessment after the training before resumption of their duties. They are also required to undergo annual assessments for a period of 5 years, the statement said. It also stated that the senior members of the disciplinary committee conducted the hearing in line with status 46.2 of the University of Ghana statutes as amended and regulations 15.0 of the Code of Conduct for academic staff of the University of Ghana. So this was quite a controversial documentary, like the paper captures it, because it divided many analysts, while some were of the view that there was evidence of sex for grades seen in the documentary. Others said that you only saw a lecturers engaging in appropriate conversations with people that they believed were their students, or at least persons who they expected to be connected to some students at the universities. We heard Professor Jampo deny the allegations. We didn't hear from Dr. Butako, but the latest coming in is that Jampo is to go 6 months without salary. It takes effect from January 1, 2020. And same with Dr. Butako, 4 months without suspension. And so the question that we'll obviously be asking is whether this satisfies those who have been pushing for some sanctions to be meted out. And the context we need to put this in is the fact that generally it's perceived that sex for grade is a phenomenon on campus. When I was in the university, I was fortunately,
you were a victim of sex for grade?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I was at Legon, the university at the center of the controversy. And these were things that we had heard about, and there was rumor always around alleging that someone is getting grades that the person doesn't deserve. I mean, this is not something that
is new.
It's new. And
but,
so
but those were just speculations. When you were
so
on
when
campus.
the story came out, I mean, it was a lot of people were looking forward to watch the documentary to see whether they will find evidence of that. I shared in the opinion of those who said that in a strict sense, the sex for grades was not justified in it. But I mean, this is the sanction coming from the university. People had called for their dismissal, others had called for all forms of action, but the university has determined it's based on what it's been able to come out with per its conduct. And so it's quite interesting here. We don't know whether this sits well with, we know for a fact that the BBC did interview other individuals who made the allegations, proud to even setting them up. And
yeah,
so
we do have the statement. Yes. So if you can take us through a statement, and then we'll just apprise ourselves of what the contents are.
Okay, so this is from the University of Ghana. It says management of the University of Ghana wishes to inform members of the university community that the senior members disciplinary committee has completed the hearing of the matter involving Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Butako. In line with Statute 46.2 of the University of Ghana Statutes as amended and Regulation 15.0 of the Code of Conduct for academic staff of the University of Ghana, the disciplinary committee recommended a 6-month suspension without pay for Professor Jampo and a 4-month suspension without pay for Dr. Butako. The suspensions take effect from January 1, 2020. In addition, Professor Jampo and Dr. Butako are required to undergo appropriate training on the University of Ghana's sexual harassment and misconduct policy, as well as the code of conduct for academic staff of the University of Ghana.
And they're also supposed to do this annual assessment for 5 years running. Okay, but we also do have a response from their legal representative, or let's say the legal representative of one of the protagonists or antagonists in all this, Dr. Ransford Jampo. So would also apprise you of that.
Okay, so it's coming from FX Law and Associates. It's Registrar and Secretary to Council, University of Ghana. So it says RE disciplinary action in respect of Professor Ransford Jampo and Dr. Paul Butako. We write for and on behalf of Professor Jampo and Dr. Butako to accept the decision of the university to suspend them for 6 and 4 months respectively. Given the background of this case and the fact that our clients have consistently denied the origin of the action and have raised fundamental issues of natural justice, among many others, we have the firm view that the decision is quite harsh. The statement by the university creates a lot of doubts in the minds of people and make it succinctly clear Professor Jampo and Dr. Butako were not found guilty of sexual misconduct or sex for grades as was initially alleged by the BBC. It is disappointing that the BBC showed gross disrespect to our clients and the university by refusing to make themselves available to be cross-examined in the whole process, thereby undermining the integrity of the entire administrative proceedings. It is also unfortunate that the university's release did not make it clear that allegations of BBC were false and had no basis. Additionally, given the fact that our clients were not found guilty of any sexual misconduct, contrary to the anti-sexual harassment and misconduct policy of the university, we find it strange that they are required to be subjected not only to training but also to an annual assessment for 5 years in this regard. It is for this reason that we find the decision to be a little too harsh and universities communicate as misleading. However, they accept the decision like it goes on to say, and they say they have made it clear that the senior members, they do not want to further litigate this matter in court or have a protracted dispute over the issue. So it assures about the fact that they intend to put this particular matter behind them. And so they have some disagreements about how the university communicated the sanctions and everything.
Okay. We have a human rights and public interest lawyer, Francis Xavier Sosu, the legal practitioner, and well, he's the one who signed this. And it will mean that 6 months they can resume work.
Yes.
Okay. And it means they've done a month already. They're left with 5 more months. Already the second month already halved it. So, all right.
So that is for the front page of the Ghanaian Times. We can move on to. So the other story has to do with the 21 secessionists who were nabbed as the military swoop on hideouts at Georgia. That story is on page 18. The separatist movement group. We are told that they had managed to set up a military camp in the thick of a forest, and according to the military guys who led this operation, they say that it appears the guys who settled for that particular location seem to have some military know-how, because that is a location that is good for such activity. It has enough cover. It's a valley. If you are in, you can't be seen, and that's how come some of the guys were able to escape from there. So that is also some insecurity concerns that they are trying to deal with.
And Joy FM spoke to, and subsequently also, we broadcast it here right on Joy News. The Minister of Information giving the assurances about how the security agencies and the apparatus of states in charge of security were in the lead when it comes to picking up intelligence and nibbing some of these incidents in the bud.
Yes. We can do the Finder newspaper now. The front page has a story from the president's tour of the OT region. It says, equitable distribution of development, president assures new regions, and soldiers seize 20 persons at suspected secessionist training camp. And Unipass to be officially piloted on February 21, and government trapped into over $100 million possible judgment debt, also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. We can do the Daily Dispatch newspaper now. 340-footer containers of poisonous gizzard on sale to the public. That's according to the directors. They are asking a question again, whether the directors of important companies have been arrested. That's the question that they are asking. Airbus scandal, why Ghanaian bribe takers were not named in trials. And Dakwa Newman files to contest Okaikwe South NPP primaries. An update on the unionization of NLA staff. That's the National Lottery Authority, also on the front page of the Daily Dispatch. So the back page has that political story about the NPP primaries there. So that is it for the front pages of the Daily Dispatch, the Daily Guide, the Ghanaian Times, and the Finder newspaper, Roland.
All right. Any issue you want to pick on beyond the subjects?
I think the bit about the secessionist story, the only thing that bothers me is the fact that, I mean, our security agencies and state prosecutors in times past had the opportunity to deal with this matter in a manner that I felt was important. You know, they've been arrested many times, they've been put before the court, and on all those occasions, the state has dropped the case against them. And so it comes as no surprise that first there was an intention to want to declare independence, and subsequently they were arrested and put before court. When the case was dropped against them, the leader of the group went back and actually declared their independence, and he has since been on the run. The securities have been trying to locate him. No one knows. I mean, for a certain period.
In the Republic of Ghana?
I guess our best guess would be that he will be in his supposed Republic of Togoland, which doesn't exist actually. Western Togoland. So he actually sent, he did a video recording sent via YouTube saying that if the state of Ghana intends to engage, they should stop looking for him to arrest. They should rather send a delegation for them to sit down and talk over their disagreements. This is someone who we arrested and put before our court and decided to drop the case against them. Now they've gone a step further and we are told that there's a training camp. And what's interesting about those who were in the camp, some of them didn't actually know what purpose they are being trained for, except they are actually lying to the journalists who spoke to them. They told us that they had been told that this was protocol recruitment into the Ghana military. And so they are being trained, then the process is fast track for them to join the military. But this is what the state security agencies believe to be part of this movement. And so perhaps this is a reminder of the need for us sometimes to follow through when we suspect that people have committed a certain crime or intend to commit a certain crime, rather than the manner which we handled it, which, for the records, if we go through the reportage over a certain 4-year period, at least we've had them arrested on more than 4 different occasions, and each time charged and the charges against them dropped. And so we just hope that with this particular arrest, they follow through to carry out the investigation to ensure that if indeed there is merit in it, we go all the way further, and more importantly, to look for the other individuals who may have been part of this whole grand scheme to destabilize the peace of the country. I mean, Ghana, we know the territories of Ghana, and we know the process to go through if you want to have a region created. You can't have a country created as it stands. I mean, so those are matters that we expect people to identify with and avoid engaging in such acts.
Yeah, the thing is that if we have the world today, and indeed in the current century, we've had countries that have fought for secession, and subsequently they have succeeded. Recently, we just had a country created over the period. In Africa, we have South Sudan. And we've also had a number of these movements trying to, either by way of recalling history, trying to do that. We have a movement also ongoing in Cameroon, which are always nipped in the bud. There's Taiwan.
Even in Spain, the Catalonia area, they also had those concerns.
That's the most notable in Europe as well. So the thing is, we have to look at it in a certain perspective. What do we want to do? Who are these individuals who are leading this sort of agitation or movement? Does it have the sort of wide support on the ground? If it does or does not, based on the intelligence, how do we deal with it? Is it through the diplomatic circles? This one also has a certain history, and we know when there was the partition for Africa, subsequently after the war, we know what happened. And for me, I think personally, if we feel them off the hook, so to speak, for good reason, then it means that we want to appreciate the concerns they have, not the agitation in the first place. So where do we deal with it? Do we deal with it at the national level, or we take it to the UN and go and negotiate or somewhat? Does it have the wider support? And so we need to take a look at it. If these insurgencies are on the ground, how do we deal with it, knowing that there are a number of variables in the sub-region in our country that would tend to contribute to any sort of mass insurrection, so to speak. We have the proliferation of a number of arms. If you have the latest statistics from the movement, the Small Arms Commission, there's every indication that we have between 2 to 3 million arms within the sub-region also take into cognizance our country. And so we have people and whole households that have arms embedded somewhere, either within the walls or within their bedrooms, etc. What would they use those things for? What do we do in trying to unravel and get to the bottom of the subject? At the end of the day, it destabilizes peace, and we have to make sure we get the right things done.
Yeah.